Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are really plunging into the intense, sometimes frankly terrifying visionary world of Carl Gustav Jung.
That's right, the man who gave us concepts like the shadow, the persona, the collective unconscious, things we kind of throw around now.
Exactly, and if you want a clear path through the psychological crisis that basically birthed modern analytical psychology, you were definitely in the right place.
We should probably start with that quote, the one that really defined his whole life's work. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes."
Powerful.
And that's our mission today, isn't it? To understand how his own deep dive, his journey inward, which he documented in this incredible illustrated journal, the Red Book, how that became a kind of map.
A map for all of us maybe, seeking psychological wholeness.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this journey. It doesn't start in some philosophy seminar, does it? It starts clinically.
Right, at the Burkholtzli Clinic in Zurich, early 1900s.
And he was doing these word association experiments. Sounds fascinating.
Oh, it was foundational work. Really groundbreaking. He'd read a list of words to a patient, simple things like table, mother, money.
Just time their response.
Yeah, measured reaction time. But also watched for hesitation, stumbling, any weird physical reactions.
If something jumped out.
That pointed to what he called a complex.
Okay, hold on. Can you break that down? Like in practical terms today, what is a complex?
Think of it as a psychic knot. That's the easiest way.
A knot.
Yeah, an unconscious cluster of emotionally charged ideas, images, feelings, all tangled up around a specific theme. And they're sort of autonomous.
Meaning they have a life of their own.
Kind of, yeah. They can suddenly trigger this huge emotional reaction that feels totally out of proportion.
Okay. Like your boss gives some mild feedback and suddenly you're either sobbing or furious.
Exactly. That's a classic example. It might be a father complex or a rejection complex kicking off. It acts like this little splinter personality inside you with its own agenda.
Wow. Okay, so that early clinical work, that got Freud's attention.
It did. Sigmund Freud in Vienna, 1906. And that kicked off one of the most, intellectually explosive partnerships of the 20th century.
And at first, they were totally aligned on the unconscious dreams.
Absolutely. Saw eye to eye initially, but the cracks started showing pretty quickly. Around libido, that was the big one.
Right. Freud's idea was very specific, wasn't it? Primarily sexual energy.
Exactly. The driver of neurosis, he thought. But Jung just couldn't get on board with that narrow view.
How did he see it differently?
Much, much broader. For Jung, libido was more like a general psychic energy, the life force itself.
So it could show up anywhere.
Yeah, in creativity, art, religious feelings, mythology, not just sex.
Okay, and that disagreement, that just grew.
It became a chasm. And when Jung published Symbols of Transformation in 1912, that was it.
His public break.
Pretty much his Declaration of Independence, yeah. He basically argued that myths weren't just disguised sexual urges. They had their own deep psychological truth, these universal patterns.
Which directly challenged Freud's whole framework.
Fundamentally. And the fallout, the final split in 1913, it was devastating for Jung personally.
More than just an intellectual divorce thing.
Oh, much more. It plunged him into this profound personal crisis for about 7 years. What he later called his confrontation with the unconscious.
And this is where it shifts, right? From academic debate to something else.
Something visionary, yeah.
Yeah.
And terrifying. This period was just a flood of inner visions, images, overwhelming.
Didn't he have that vision about Europe? The blood?
He did. A recurring, premonitory vision. A sea of blood engulfing Europe.
Wow. And then WWI broke out the next year.
Tragically, yes. He was really walking a tightrope then, between visionary insight and, potential psychosis.
So what saved him? How did this become psychology and not just a breakdown?
His decision, his radical decision to engage with these images directly.
Not push them away.
No, not treat them as symptoms to be suppressed. He treated them as autonomous, meaningful realities that he needed to understand, and that was his revolutionary method. Active imagination.
So wait, he would actually, sit down, maybe after his family was asleep.
Yeah.
And intentionally go into that chaos. And talk to the figures he found there.
Exactly that. He gave them agency, dialogued with them, painted them, drew them, and recorded everything meticulously in this huge ornate book, the Red Book, or Liber Novus.
And these encounters.
Yeah.
They led to his big ideas.
Absolutely. Some of the most striking ones. Like he met this figure called Philemon.
Who was he?
A wise old man figure, appeared with kingfisher wings, apparently.
Okay.
Philemon became Jung's kind of inner guru, his internal authority figure.
What did he teach Jung?
Crucially, that Jung's thoughts weren't just his thoughts invented by his ego. They came to him.
That the mind wasn't just an empty box the ego fills up.
Right. Philemon's very existence, he apparently told Jung, I am not you and you are not. I forced Jung to accept the unconscious as this independent reality, not just his personal cellar of repressed stuff.
And there was another famous pair he encountered, right? Elijah and Salome.
Yes, that pair was vital. Elijah, the prophet figure representing spirit, ethics, the law.
And Salome.
She was his blind daughter in the visions, embodied instinct, the erotic, passion, what Jung would later theorize as the anima.
The feminine principle in a man's psyche.
Exactly. So this pairing forced Jung to confront and try to reconcile these opposites within himself. Spirit and instinct, law and passion, all in one conversation, effectively.
So Philemon and Salome, they weren't just dream characters, they're like psychic forces demanding attention, demanding integration.
Precisely. And navigating these incredibly intense, personal, mythological encounters, that's what led him to realize this chaos wasn't just his chaos, it felt bigger, universal.
Which leads us directly to his biggest theoretical leap.
The collective unconscious. Yes, that's the essential transition. The figures felt too powerful, too resonant with world myths to be purely personal.
Okay, so we have the personal unconscious that's like our forgotten memories, repressed stuff unique to us. How's the collective unconscious different?
The collective unconscious is deeper. It's the universal foundation of the psyche. It's inherited, he believed, not learned, like the basic structure of the brain itself.
So it doesn't have specific memories like, I forgot my keys.
No, it contains archetypes. Think of them as preformed templates, blueprints for human experience, universal patterns.
Like the mother, the hero.
The trickster, the wise old man, yeah. They show up in myths, fairy tales, dreams, across every culture, every era. It's like our shared psychic inheritance.
Okay, let's try and define a few key archetypes. The one maybe people hear most about, the shadow.
The shadow. That's everything we reject about ourselves. The unacknowledged side of the personality.
All the stuff the ego doesn't like. Selfishness, anger, certain desires.
Exactly. We repress it, push it down. But repression doesn't make it vanish. It just means we tend to project it onto other people.
Right. And here's the key insight for you listening. If you find yourself constantly, intensely judging a particular flaw in others, maybe their greed or their anger or whatever,
that criticism could very well be pointing straight back at your own unintegrated shadow. It holds energy, though. Latent creativity sometimes.
So the goal isn't to destroy it.
No, it's to integrate it. Bring it into consciousness, make peace with it. Otherwise, it just causes trouble from the unconscious basement, as you might say.
Which brings us back to Salome, representing the anima in men. And there's a counterpart in women, the animus.
That's right, the inner masculine principle in women.
Why is integrating these inner opposites so crucial?
Well, because without it, Jung thought, we're kind of psychologically lopsided, only half-formed.
So for a man, ignoring the anima might mean cutting himself off from intuition, emotional depth, connection.
Yeah, and for a woman, ignoring the animus might lead to a lack of, say, structure, assertiveness, or logical direction in life. Psychic balance needs that union of opposites.
Okay, and then there's the face we put on for the world, the persona.
Ah, yes, the persona, essentially our social mask.
Like our professional self or how we act with certain friends.
Exactly. The identity we craft to fit in, to adapt to expectations, work, family, social groups. Think of it like your curated social media profile.
It's necessary, right, for functioning in society.
Well, absolutely necessary for adaptation. But the danger is mistaking the persona for your real self.
Becoming alienated. Superficial.
Yeah, you risk living a life that's just a performance, not authentic.
Okay, so persona is the mask, shadow is the basement stuff, animus are the inner partners. Where's the center of all this? The goal.
That would be the self, with a capital S.
The self.
It's the archetype of totality, wholeness, the organizing principle of the entire psyche, conscious and unconscious.
It's often symbolized by a mandala, that circular pattern.
Exactly. That harmonious circle represents the self. It's what the ego, your conscious sense of I should strive towards, relate to.
But wait, if the ego is our conscious I, how do we tell the difference between striving for the self and just sophisticated narcissism? Ego inflation.
That's a really crucial question. The ego thinks it's the boss, right? But the self emerges through discipline, humility, through that hard work of dialogue with the unconscious.
Like Jung's Red Book work.
Yes, and through integrating the stuff you initially hate or fear the shadow, mainly. The ego wants power and control. The self represents wholeness and balance.
And this whole journey, this lifelong process towards that wholeness.
That's what Jung called individuation.
Okay, so Jung spent his later years kind of confirming these ideas, looking at other cultures.
He did. He engaged deeply with Eastern philosophies, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and he found these archetypal patterns everywhere.
The mandala in Tibetan Buddhism.
The drive towards psychic balance in Taoism's yin and yang, it confirmed for him the universality of these structures.
Which brings us back to a big question, reality. When Jung talked about Philemon, did he think he was talking to a literal, separate being? A ghost? A god?
It's subtle. He defined the psyche itself as a sacred reality. He saw psychology really as a continuation of mythology, offering a map of the sacred, but without needing literal belief in dogma.
So, Philemon was real in a psychological sense.
Exactly. Real in the sense that he was a powerful, autonomous force within Jung's psyche that shaped his thinking, taught him things. He had real impact.
An archetypal manifestation.
Yeah.
A necessary inner teacher. Not something you could, photograph.
Precisely. Not empirically real like a chair, but psychically real in its effect.
Okay, now here's where it gets really mind-bending for me. The connection between the inner world and the outer world. Synchronicity.
Ah, yes. Meaningful coincidence. Two or more events happening around the same time that are meaningfully linked, but not causally linked.
No cause and effect, but they feel connected.
Right. And this hints that maybe the psyche and the external world aren't totally separate barriers. Jung actually worked with the physicist Wolfgang Pauli on this.
Wow, physics and psychology.
Yeah. The idea suggests that our inner state, what's active in our unconscious, maybe can somehow align with external events in a meaningful way.
What's the classic example? The scarab beetle.
That's the one. A patient was describing a dream about a golden scarab, and just then, a beetle, remarkably like a scarab, tapped on Jung's window. An unlikely event, perfectly timed.
Okay, that's weird.
It is weird, and if you connect this, maybe loosely, to something like the observer effect in quantum physics.
Where observing a particle changes it, collapses possibilities.
Right. Synchronicity kind of hints that reality might be, participatory, that the archetypes are like potentials, and when we consciously engage them, they can manifest not just inwardly, but sometimes, somehow outwardly too.
It's pretty amazing how Jung's language has just seeped into everyday culture, isn't it? Shadow, persona, archetype.
We use them all the time, sometimes without even knowing the source. They give us a grammar for talking about films, books, even ourselves online.
That polished identity we project, the persona, the villain's motivation, often the shadow.
His legacy is huge because he gave us a practical vocabulary for these hidden aspects of being human.
So if you had to boil it all down, the crisis, the red book, the archetypes, what's the ultimate takeaway from Jung?
I think it's that self-knowledge that looking inside is the most important task we have, and that integrating the opposites within us, especially the shadow, is the path to becoming whole, individuation.
Which leads us to our final thought, something for you to really chew on. If, and it's a big if, but if the deepest hints from Jung, and maybe even quantum physics, are right,
that the universe only solidifies from potential into reality when observed,
then maybe the world isn't just something we passively discover. Maybe, just maybe, reality is being constantly improvised, co-created, minute by minute.
By your own consciousness interacting with it.
Maybe the ultimate step in individuation is realizing you're not just a character in the play, you're helping to write the script.
Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. That's Carl Jung, isn't it? Probably the single best quote to capture his whole life's work.
It really is. It sums up his entire mission, I think. He wasn't just, a detached observer of the mind. Jung dedicated his life to mapping that inner world, the terrifying and beautiful parts.
Creating a kind of psychological spirituality using ideas that still feel pretty radical today.
Absolutely. And that's what we're diving into here. We want to give you a shortcut, really, to understanding the man, his big crisis, and these breakthrough concepts.
Like the shadow, individuation, the collective unconscious. Where did it all start?
Well, the seeds were planted early on. His life in Switzerland began with this real tension. His father was a Protestant pastor, kind of struggling with his faith.
Correct.
And his mother had this deeply mystical, sometimes quite dark, intuitive nature. So right from the start, you have this clash.
Dogma versus what? Raw spiritual experience.
Exactly. That duality, that tension between opposites, it really became the theme of his entire life's work, this drive to reconcile them.
And that pushed him towards psychiatry, not theology.
Right. Psychiatry was still, pretty new. He started at the famous Berkeley Clinic.
Yeah.
And that's where he did those fascinating word association experiments.
Ah, yes. Tell us about those. They were quite innovative, weren't they?
Oh, completely revolutionary for the time. He'd say a word and notice patients would hesitate or stumble or have this emotional reaction to specific trigger words.
Little clues.
Tiny clues, yeah. But he realized they pointed to these internal knots, these complexes, he called them, clusters of emotionally charged stuff, almost acting like little independent personalities within the psyche.
So the unconscious wasn't just a passive dumping ground.
Not at all. It was dynamic, alive, with its own agenda. And that work is what got Sigmund Freud's attention.
Right, the Freud connection. That started around 1906.
Yes, and it became, for a time, probably the most important intellectual partnership in psychology. That first meeting in Vienna, they supposedly talked for 13 hours straight. 13
hours? Wow, Freud must have been impressed.
He adored Jung, called him the crown prince of psychoanalysis, the one who'd carry the torch.
But it didn't last. There was a fundamental disagreement, wasn't there, about libido?
That was the absolute core of it. For Freud, libido was simple. It was sexual energy, period.
Yeah.
That explained everything.
And Jung
looked at art, myths, religion, and just thought, that's too narrow. He saw libido as a much broader thing, a general psychic energy.
Like the engine's heat, not just one specific function.
Precisely. It could manifest as sexual drive, sure, but also as creativity or spiritual yearning or, the drive to build something.
But challenging Freud on the sexual theory, that must have been risky, professionally speaking.
Oh, incredibly risky. It was almost like heresy within the psychoanalytic movement. Freud saw it as a betrayal.
He accused Jung of being mystical, didn't he?
Yes, and of turning psychoanalysis into some kind of religion with Jung at the head. The break, when it came in 1913, was really bitter. It wasn't just losing a friend or mentor.
It pulled the rug out from under him professionally.
Completely. Yeah. And that collapse, that rupture, plunged Jung into this profound personal crisis.
Which, paradoxically, became maybe the most productive period of his life, those years from 1913 to about 1917.
Arguably, yes. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious. He wasn't just sad about Freud. He felt like he was descending into an abyss. He later said he was deliberately risking his own sanity.
How so? What was happening internally?
He was flooded with these incredibly powerful visions, apocalyptic scenes, Europe drowning in blood, which later seemed chillingly prophetic with World War I starting.
Most people would try to shut that down, medicate it away.
Right. But Jung did the opposite. He developed this technique he called active imagination. He didn't suppress the visions or voices. He engaged with them.
Engaged how? Like talk to them?
Treated them as if they were autonomous beings, real personalities he could interact with. He'd write down these dialogues, paint the images.
And that became the Red Book, that huge illustrated manuscript.
Exactly. Liber Novus. It's this stunning, almost medieval-looking record of that journey. It was his way, he said, of finding the myth in which I live, trying to make sense of it all.
So who are these figures he was engaging with?
Well, the most significant was probably Philemon. He appeared as this wise old man, but with the wings of a kingfisher.
Wings, okay.
Yeah. Philemon became his inner guru, a source of insight that felt completely separate from his own conscious ego.
What did Philemon teach him?
One crucial thing was that thoughts aren't just invented by the ego. Philemon told him, thoughts come to you. They arrive. Almost like birds or animals.
Yeah.
Like beings of nature.
Okay, wait. How did Jung himself not just think, I'm having a psychotic break, talking to a winged man?
That's such a key question. And he thought about it a lot. He made this really important distinction between empirical reality, a rock you can touch, and psychological reality.
Meaning?
Meaning something like anger or a dream figure like Philemon might not have a physical body, but it's real because it has effects. It influences your thoughts, your feelings, your actions.
So its reality is judged by its impact on the psyche.
Precisely. Philemon was psychologically real because he fundamentally shaped Jung's thinking and his life's work. He wasn't just a hallucination to be dismissed.
And there are other figures too. You mentioned opposites earlier.
Yes, figures like Elijah representing sort of patriarchal law and tradition, appeared alongside Salome, a blind but beautiful young woman representing the erotic, the instinctual, maybe an early form of the anima. He had to reconcile these opposing forces within himself.
And the fact that these complex figures could just emerge fully formed, that led him somewhere profound, didn't it?
It led him straight to his most radical and maybe most famous idea, the collective unconscious.
Okay, let's unpack that. It's different from just my personal unconscious, right? My forgotten memories or repressed stuff.
Totally different. The personal unconscious is like, the basement of your house, storing your life's forgotten bits. The collective unconscious is like the bedrock beneath all the houses.
Shared ground.
Exactly. A deep, inherited layer of the psyche that all humans share, simply by virtue of being human. It contains these universal patterns, these blueprints. Think of it like the instincts, but for the mind. Psychic DNA.
What convinced him this existed? What was the evidence?
Well, he saw the same fundamental stories, symbols, and character types, what he'd later call archetypes, appearing in myths, religions, and dreams across cultures that had absolutely no historical contact.
Like finding the same fairy tale structure in, say, Ireland and among indigenous Australians.
Things like that, yes. But the really stunning moment for him was the case of a patient, a man diagnosed with schizophrenia, who described this bizarre vision.
The solar phallus man?
That's the one. The patient saw the sun, and it had this tube like a phallus hanging down, and wind was blowing out of it. Very strange image.
Okay.
Years later, Jung was studying an ancient Greek text, part of an obscure Mithraic liturgy, and he found almost the exact same image described. There was absolutely no way his patient could have ever encountered this text.
Whoa, so the image just bubbled up.
It seemed to erupt from that deep collective layer. It wasn't personal, it was universal. This kind of thing cemented his idea of the archetypes.
The blueprints within that collective layer. The deep grammar of the psyche, you called it.
That's a good way to put it. These archetypes are the inherited tendencies that shape how we experience the world, how we understand common human situations like birth, death, love, power.
Let's talk about some key archetypes he identified. The persona, maybe start there.
Sure. The persona is pretty straightforward, really. It's the mask we wear, the social role we adopt to fit in, to function in the world. Your professional self, your good parent self.
Necessary, but potentially problematic if you identify too strongly with it.
Exactly. If you mistake the mask for your actual face, you become shallow, cut off from your deeper self. And often that's when you bump into the shadow.
Ah, the shadow. That sounds ominous.
It is, in a way. The shadow is the repository for everything about ourselves that we deny, reject, or repress. The impulses, desires, weaknesses we don't want to admit to. Our dark side.
Is it just bad stuff? Evil?
That's the crucial point Jung made. No, it's not purely negative. Yes, it holds destructive potential, but it also contains immense vitality, creativity, raw energy, instincts we've lost touch with.
So you can't just get rid of it?
You absolutely can't. Jung insisted the goal is integration. You have to consciously confront your shadow, own it, understand it. If you don't, you just project it onto other people, other groups.
Leading to conflict, prejudice.
Huge amounts of it. Owning your shadow is the first essential and often painful step towards becoming whole.
Okay, beyond the persona and shadow, what other major structures did he find in there?
He talked a lot about contrasexual archetypes, the anima and animus.
The inner opposites.
Right. The anima is the unconscious feminine principle within a man influencing his moods, feelings, intuition, his capacity for relatedness. The animus is the unconscious masculine principle within a woman shaping her logic, assertiveness, her connection to ideas and spirit.
So men need to integrate their inner feminine, women their inner masculine.
For wholeness, yes. To become balanced, fully human, it's all part of this larger process. The ultimate goal, really.
Which he called the self, with a capital S.
The self, yes. That's the archetype of wholeness, the center and the totality of the entire psyche, conscious and unconscious. It's often symbolized by the mandala, that circular image.
And the journey towards realizing that self.
That's individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. Not necessarily richer or more famous, but a unique, whole, integrated individual.
And it involves bringing all these parts together, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, persona, anima and animus.
Exactly, the integration of opposites. It's not about choosing one and rejecting the other. It's about holding the tension, finding the synthesis.
He saw parallels in alchemy, didn't he?
He did. He realized the alchemists weren't just trying to make physical gold. Their texts were symbolic maps of psychological transformation.
So like the Negrito, the blackening stage in alchemy.
was the painful confrontation with the shadow. And the rubedo, the reddening or final stage, represented the achievement of the integrated self, the union of opposites. Alchemy was psychology in symbolic dress.
This brings us to something really fascinating you touched on earlier, this idea of Jung trying to bridge science and, well, spirit, seeing the psyche itself as sacred.
Yes, absolutely. He felt modern life had created this damaging split. He saw psychology not just as treating illness, but as a way to reconnect with the deep archetypal truths that religions and myths used to provide. Psychology is a kind of modern, functional myth.
And this connects to some really mind-bending ideas about reality itself, linking Jung to quantum physics.
It's an incredible parallel that people have drawn. Think about the observer effect in quantum physics, like the Copenhagen interpretation.
Where particles exist only as probabilities until someone observes or measures them.
Right. The act of observation collapses the wave function, brings something definite out of potentiality. Now, apply that idea to Jung's archetypes.
So archetypes aren't just fixed things sitting in the collective unconscious.
Maybe not. Maybe they exist as potentialities, like those probability waves, and they only condense into a specific form, a dream image, a myth, a vision like the solar phallus man, when consciousness engages with them, observes them.
Wow. So the act of Jung looking for meaning, or the patient having the vision, that interaction manifested the archetype from potential into psychological reality.
That's the implication. It suggests a participatory reality. We're not just passive observers. Our consciousness is involved in shaping or co-creating what emerges from the depths.
And this explains synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences.
Exactly. Synchronicity isn't just random chance. It's what happens when your inner state, your psychological process, aligns with or seemingly pulls corresponding events from the outer world. The inner and outer mirror each other because they're part of one underlying reality shaped by consciousness.
Okay, my head is spinning slightly. If reality is potentially co-created like this, and these deep truths are embedded within us, why the struggle? Why the forgetting? Why do we start with this, like, veil of ignorance?
That's a profound question. Jung might suggest the veil, the limitation, the struggle. It's necessary for growth. Consciousness can't expand in a vacuum. It needs resistance. It needs problems to solve. It needs the journey of rediscovery.
We have to forget to have the experience of remembering.
Perhaps. If we knew everything from the start, where's the meaning? Where's the drive? The individuation journey is the process of consciousness expanding under limitation. The different religions, the myths, they're like different maps, different languages trying to describe the same hidden, integrated territory that we uncover through living.
What an incredible picture he paints. Jung starts by looking inward, wrestling with his own psyche, and ends up suggesting a framework where our inner journey is tied into the very fabric of reality, a kind of cosmic collaboration.
It's vast, and his influence is undeniable. You see Jungian echoes in therapy, obviously, but also in films, in literature, even video games exploring persona and shadow. He really opened up a dialogue between psychology and spirituality, East and West.
He showed that the self, that point of integration, is where the deeply personal meets the truly universal.
Beautifully put.
So, to leave you with a final thought, building on this observer idea and the path of individuation, if the universe in some way is participating in or even unfolding around your specific journey towards wholeness, what kind of responsibility does that place on the inner work you do? What ripples does your integration create?